Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Henry Gilroy, co-executive producer of Star Wars Rebels. You're listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
Welcome, young Padawan, to Aggressive Negotiations, the buttery show that gets into the nooks and crannies of the Star Wars galaxy's English muffin. I am one of your hosts, Jedi Master John Mills, and with me, as always, is my dear, close friend, the paragon of virtue known galaxy-wide as Jedi Master Matthew Rushing. Matt, how are you today?
Hold on, John. Hey, Dex, could I get some Jawa juice with this English muffin? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Wait a minute. If we're the see, the thing is, you're setting me off down. I'm like, who would be the Jawa juice in the combo? I'm not even sure what Jawa juice is. They never really settled that, right?
I don't know. It doesn't, but it sounds good, and Obi-Wan likes it. No, we know Obi-Wan likes a good drink.
So Obi-Wan was day drinking, is what we're saying, right? He was like, okay. I dig it.
Well, I mean, when in Coruscant.
Yeah, you know? I mean, why not? I'm not judging. Not judging at all. As a matter of fact, I'm endorsing. But anyway, before we get into today's topic, of course, we are a part of the Nerd Party Network. Go to thenerdparty.com and see a wide variety of shows that appeal to just about every niche of the geek fetish universe that is out there. We have Filibuster, which features lots of great interviews and exclusives with film. We have a Doctor Who podcast, Time and Space. We have Nerd Nuptial. We have Great Shot Kid. We have this show. We have Missing Frames. We're all over the board, man. We've got everything that your heart could desire. So go on over to thenerdparty.com. If you want to reach out to us, thenerdparty.com/contact. Look up Aggressive Negotiations. Send us a note. We get the email. Go on over to the network Facebook account, facebook.com/thenerdparty. Find the Nerd Party on Instagram or at Join Nerd Party on Twitter. And the show specific account on Twitter is at The Jedi Masters. So, Matt, I have a topic for you. It's one of our trademark surprise topics.
Oh,
yes.
Hello there.
I was thinking about this because we did the Mortis arc for our 100th episode, and then we talked about Mark of the Crown, the fourth book in the Jedi Apprentice series, and so my mind has sort of been stewing in that time period of Star Wars because I do love being there, to be honest with you. Like that.
Oh, me too.
And so I was thinking, Mortis arc, Anakin's connection to the material, and all of those sorts of things somehow sends me down a road where I start thinking about the clones, and then I start thinking about something in very specific, a question that I have, where, of course, there's a very big thematic point that Anakin's arm is a robot arm. It's a symbol of him losing his humanity. And, of course, Luke has the same thing with his hand. And so we know that cybernetics are part and parcel of the galaxy of Star Wars. However, my question to you is, why wouldn't they simply have cloned him a new arm and grafted it onto his body? Do you think it has something to do with the prohibition against Jedi being cloned? Do you think it has something to do with the cloning process being thrown off by a Jedi with such a high midichlorian count? Why would they give him a robot arm and not a duplicate real arm?
That is a really good question, and I'd never thought about that before. I mean, if you have cloning technology, it does seem like you could clone parts of yourself, right? You could maybe grow parts of yourself. That is a really great question. I wonder, you remember that movie, The Island?
I never saw it. It's a Michael Bay movie.
Okay.
It's got Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson, right?
Scarlett Johansson. And so what it is that the island is a place where people grow clones of themselves to then use for body parts when they need them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in the Star Wars galaxy, we can grow a full-on clone, but we don't have the technology to just create just a certain body part, like to be able to 3D print a body part, basically.
Okay.
I wonder if that could be the reason that you're given a cybernetic hand like Anakin was or Luke is, instead of, something organic.
See, with Luke, I think you could reason out that Luke gets, a robot hand because the Alliance is strapped for supplies. This is what they have. This is all they can do.
Yep. Yeah.
This is what you get,
Good
kid.
point.
Sorry. But with Anakin, I like your thinking of, they'd have had to grow a whole other Anakin. And then, of course, the Jedi aren't going to be, down with the idea of, giving birth to a new life just to kill it so that they could harvest an arm just in case.
It seems like that's against the Jedi code.
It seems like even in the murky times that the Jedi live in the prequels, even they'd be able to see the problems with that ethically. But I do wonder, is it possible as well that it being is this something that could have happened for a normal person, or is it something that couldn't happen for anybody? Because we know that midichlorians are a part of all living cells, every living cell. And so maybe that's it. Because if you remember Timothy Zahn in the first books that came out in the 1990s, the Heir to the Empire trilogy that gave us Zahn, was the whole idea that clones were outside of the natural order. And so they would, force madness, and you need the E-Salamiri. And obviously that did not carry over. But is it possible that it's just that the midichlorians can't be duplicated? That you would have essentially like a lifeless arm. But then no, then you have the clones, and if midichlorians are a part of everything, then,
right?
Okay, so that theory's out the window.
I mean, it's a good thought, though, in that sense. Like, it makes you really think, and obviously it kind of brings us back to that conversation we were having about clones and replicants, and if they, are
Right.
in the Force and all that. And, I think the probably obvious answer is the fact that for Lucas, he was going for a specific thematic element of
sure. I mean, no,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, and just wanted to say that so everybody's not just like yelling at their iPods. You guys are idiots.
No. We get the whole thematic thing of Anakin losing his humanity. We get that. Like, there's almost a part of me that thinks in terms of like bureaucratic structures, like Anakin's arm was on order or something. Like they gave him the metal arm. And then they were like, yeah, we'll get you your arm. And then it just never comes. And like he turns evil by that point. And then Palpatine's like, nah, robot body. Sorry, dude. I guess that just comes from growing up around the bureaucratic morass that is the DC metro area.
But I think that's, just that joke brings up the whole idea of the fact that, when Anakin is turned into Darth Vader, he's not given those parts either. He's not given the opportunity, because at that point, why would the Sith wouldn't care, right?
True.
So it does really seem to drive home the point, this idea that in the Star Wars galaxy, they don't have the ability to just create, random body parts out of a clone tissue. Like, that's not something they have the opportunity to do. And so I think it makes me wonder, like, it does kind of bring me down the road of asking, what is healthcare like, in the Star Wars galaxy? Because, and the reason I'm thinking of this question is because there's the part of the Clone Wars, and there's an episode where Padme is passionately talking in the Senate, and she's using the story of one of her handmaidens and how they don't have power certain parts of the day because of the taxation of power for the war machine, and how it's really affecting, what's happening. And so I think, when I think about these kind of things, like, how does that also affect, healthcare in the galaxy? How does that? How do these things? What is that like in the galaxy? Because she also mentions that nobody has gone without these things in the Republic before, like the basic necessities like healthcare and that kind of stuff. So it makes me wonder, how does that stuff work in the Star Wars galaxy?
Well, here's an interesting hook then as well, because going with that, and I like where you're going with that about the funding and the bureaucratic stuff. which is actually one of my favorite parts of the prequels and the Clone Wars and everything, is finding out the machinations of the galaxy. This, like it's like an onion that you keep peeling. But
Yeah.
if you go with, and I'm just taking little tidbits here, if you go with the little tidbit that you know from Dex in Attack of the Clones, where he refers to the Kaminoans, cloners, damn good ones. And, he says, if the price is right, they'll do it for you. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Is it possible, like, that cloners like the Kaminoans, we know that there's the corporate guild. We know that there's the banking clan. Is it possible that there's like a cloning guild and they are, in a sense, like the corporate sector or the trade federation, where they are their own entity with whom you must contract, and it's something as simple as it's not worth their bottom line to clone the body parts. Like, it's something where it's worth it to them to create a clone army because of the cash overhead and the, like, seriously, like, it gets down to baseline, like, we're going to have a bad batch, but we can absorb the cost of that. But something like an arm for an individual person is a custom item that's so expensive, the Republic isn't going to foot the bill for it. And maybe there are private citizens out there, like Newt Gunray could afford the cost of having the Kaminoans clone a new hand for him. But your average person in the galaxy can't afford it. And then when you come to the question of clone troopers or Jedi or anybody else who works for the government, it's just not worth the cost. It's cheaper to give Anakin the robot hand or the robot arm than to clone him a new arm. And so it just makes sense from a cost perspective.
Yeah, and I think that you have brought up something that's really interesting. Like, it would be easier for them, obviously, to just create a specific, to create an entire clone instead of, because it takes much more work to just create, one specific part of your body, because it's so much more delicate, intimate, and intricate is what I mean to say. So yeah, that's something that's really interesting. It's strange because you never really think about it in, like, makes me think, like, what happens if you get hurt on the homestead, on Tatooine? Like,
yeah, I mean, you're screwed if you're out in the, the moisture farm wastes of Tatooine. But the thing is, I think maybe we have another hook from the Clone Wars series itself, because we know about the Bad Batch and we encounter somebody who was a part of a Bad Batch, and it's, the Kaminoans didn't kill him and harvest him for parts, which they easily could have done. So maybe there's even, I mean, here's I guess the wackiest, I'm jesting that it's not, it's not wacky at all, but like maybe the thing that's just not occurring to us is that in the Star Wars galaxy or the Kaminoans or whatever, they just consider it unethical to do that. So we know that they're not going to grow a clone to kill a clone for the body part. So that's evidence there. They don't just kill the Bad Batch. They put them to work in some way. So they consider it unethical to grow someone to harvest them. I don't think that's a big leap. And it just, I think, couples in. I think we've actually constructed a fairly good theory here as to why it doesn't happen.
I really like where you're going, because I was thinking about that myself, like this idea of is there an ethic then that the galaxy kind of holds to? Is there a moral standard basically that the galaxy has, and even the Kaminoans are people that go with that, because they don't clone without being paid for it, correct? And not only that, but they don't clone just to clone. Like, they are contracted to do it. There are agreements in place. You ended up with Jango Fett agreeing to allow himself to be cloned, and so like it seems like there is a very legitimate and well-placed system for this kind of behavior in the Star Wars galaxy. And I think your idea that there are places that like civilized people just do not go when it comes to this makes a lot of sense.
So here's another thing then. This is like sort of a tangential sort of rabbit hole or a parallel course here, because we're talking about, cost and ethics and stuff like that. of course, the Trade Federation creates a droid army. And if they're, they are very rich and powerful and they got the banking clan with them, but they decide to make droids, I guess because of a cost perspective. So if making clones is that expensive, isn't it really a masterstroke? It really does inform even more that Palpatine could have set his machinations in place and just raised his own droid army for the Republic. So it was droids versus droids. But it's the specific. Do you think that this contributes to the specific imbalance in the Force, creating more darkness by the fact that Palpatine creates new life that is essentially created simply for the sake of dying? So it creates more darkness. It's because if all living things have midichlorians in them, and these beings that have midichlorians in them are starting to get killed on a regular basis, and they're raised just to be killed, essentially. I mean, he raises an army for cannon fodder. Does that in and of itself contribute to the imbalance of light and dark? That he's brought this life in to be killed.
Yeah, I really like where you're going there, because as you were saying that, I was just it was coming clearer and clearer in my mind how that has to be the case, right? Like that one of the reasons, and the Jedi in the end become fools in that, they become pawns in that game, and they don't even realize what they're doing, but they're legitimately harming the galaxy by allowing these beings to be created and then basically sacrificed on the altar of war.
So the only really ethical choice then, once the clone army is created, would have been for the Jedi to protect them and fly them off somewhere and hide them, in a sense. Like create this colony and oh, wow. See, okay, here's a story idea that would be so cool, is maybe some Jedi do that. Like they abscond with their fleet of clones and they go off somewhere and they hide. And decades later, you find out they've been hiding there and they created their own system of government, and the Jedi are at the top of the government.
Wouldn't that have been cool if that's who Snoke had been?
Yeah. That would have been interesting.
See, I think that what I like about this is, by going down this rabbit hole, this clone hole, has been that it makes so much sense for the creation of the clones to have been so much more damaging than we ever thought possible.
Right.
Or we ever really gave credence to, and just how much that really hurt the Jedi, and they just didn't even know it, that this had happened to them. Like that they had allowed themselves to be in concert with this evil so much, and kind of the death of the galaxy in a lot of ways. Like wow, that's a fascinating thought.
Mentally just stumbled on the parallel you could draw. Tone poem and everything, but Luke at his moment, at his big crucible, when he's got the opportunity to kill Vader and the Emperor's like, now kill him and take your father's place at my side, he throws his lightsaber away. He throws it away and says, I'd rather die on my principles. The clones are the lightsaber. The Jedi should have not killed them all or anything, but they should have done exactly that. They should have sat down and said, no, we're going to hide them. We're throwing them away. You can't even use them. If it's the course for the Separatists to win, then they're going to win. And that's just how it's going to be. We're not going to let them go to war. Let them secede. Let it happen that way. Let them go. I mean, because the thing is, until the war starts, right, they're planning on seceding from the Republic. And if the Republic does not raise the army, if the Republic simply says, okay, go, there's no war. And there's no reason to go to war.
It's interesting because the way that the whole thing gets set up is that Palpatine has created a system that creates almost like the Civil War, but for the galaxy. And he says very much like Abraham Lincoln in some ways, no, we're not going to allow this to happen or our country will be gone, and he gives that same kind of weight to protecting the republic.
Right.
And yeah, what they don't know is that the fact that the republic is kind of already lost in the end, and that it would have just been better to live side by side with a different galactic power than have created this war. And yet this trap, I love the way that we've kind of come up with this idea of this trap that the Jedi have found themselves in, and the galaxy has found itself in, because creating lambs to go to the slaughter has allowed the dark side to flourish in a way that will blind the Jedi,
right,
and lead to their destruction and to almost the extinction of hope in the galaxy.
Wow, and then pulling that thread again with them absconding with them, if they don't fight with them, if they take the clones off and they say, no, this is life, they have to make their own decisions about what they do, we're going to go take them off somewhere where they can live and they can, do what they want. Does that would therefore, by our own logic, throw the light into a stronger position, and Palpatine's screwed, basically. You can always argue, the dark will be there and everything, but there's no surge in power that Palpatine can take advantage of, right? Because there's, if there's no gathering storm to cloud the Jedi's senses, if they make this right choice and the light gets brighter, then Palpatine, he's not going to die or anything, but he has to go into hiding, and the Sith have to wait, another couple of generations to try to figure out another way to take over the galaxy. And
I think you really do have, and such a good point.
And still, nobody has given Anakin a natural arm, and it's so in any scenario, Anakin is going to have the robot arm. So it's sort of a perfect circle for Anakin on that one. Although, as one final parting question, since we've explored this and we've gone down, all of these different rabbit holes and everything, with Anakin's arm, it's severed, cleanly severed by Dooku, right? Don't they have the technology to reattach it? I mean, they show up in fairly short order afterwards. Shouldn't they be able to rush it onto a medical frigate and get Anakin's arm reattached? Or,
I get the feeling like Anakin's arms were very badly burned.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the cauterization effect of the lightsaber has something to do with that. It severs the endings.
Where did they land? Did they land too close to the lava?
Oh no, I'm talking about his first arm that Dooku cuts off.
Oh.
But
right.
I'm sort of moving.
That's a good question, yeah.
I'm sort of moving backward now and saying, okay, with that arm, maybe they can't reattach it because, and I know it's going to sound like I'm going for a joke, but we know that the cauterization. Okay, let's presume they can overcome the cauterization. But if it cauterizes, if the lightsaber actually burns away whatever it touches and cuts through, that arm would be, what's the thickness of a lightsaber blade? I don't know, but
depends on the.
Yeah, but it would be it would be that much less arm to attach. It's not like it was cut off with a bandsaw.
Oh right, it burns. Yeah,
right. So he'd have a shorter
burns
arm
through. Yep.
Which would make it impossible for him to he'd have to relearn how to wield a lightsaber and everything like that. So in that case, it does make just as much sense.
Yeah, it also makes me wonder too, and this is just again, this is just thinking about the actual reality of it. The cauterization would happen too, where his clothing would have been cauterized to the wound.
Ooh, good
as
point.
It went through and all that stuff, and so cleaning all that up, and then it just seems like again, you either have to do what we talked about, you have to clone that body part, or the best option then is to just give you a mechanical arm that does the job of what you had before, very much in the same way that what you had before. And it just seemed like, man, there definitely were some major technological changes between when Anakin got his arm and when Luke got his arm.
Oh, yeah.
Because Luke's hand sure is nice.
Although I will point out that Anakin's arm when we see it without anything on top of it in Revenge of the Sith, like it's nice to see that he's at least gotten an upgrade between films, because his arm at the end of Attack of the Clones is a lot more.
It's kind of dodgy.
It's a lot more basic and skeleton-y looking than the one in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, the one in Revenge of the Sith actually is quite nice, and it actually looks like the precursor to what Luke would have.
Yeah,
almost, and that they would just find a way to put skin on with Luke that looked very realistic, and so.
Yeah,
and I would think felt realistic too. So, yeah, that's fascinating. It really does make me wonder, though. Now that we kind of in this, the reality of the Star Wars galaxy, like how it works, and how does healthcare work with that many different types of species, and like, can you imagine being a doctor in that?
No,
I mean,
no.
I mean, this is even worse than Star Trek, right? Because at least they're all bipeds for the most part. In Star Wars, like, the difference between a Twi'lek and a Basilisk and a Rancor and a Hutt, and I mean, all of these things are totally, completely different. A Rancor's not a real person, but you know what I'm saying?
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Now I want to write a short story set way in the future of the Star Wars galaxy, the first Rancor Jedi. Come on.
Oh, man.
Although I guess
that would be
a
funny.
Rancor would have to turn Sith, wouldn't it?
A Rancor. Yeah.
Wouldn't it? It would have to. It would have to. Well, anyway, we've gone in a lot of different strange directions ever since talking about Anakin's arm. But Matt, if people want to ask you about the state of healthcare in the Star Wars galaxy and limb replacement, I consider you an expert in both. Where can they find you online?
Well, I'm waiting for the Senate to vote on the single payer system, and so it's going to be a while, though. So you can find me on Twitter at MattRushing02. I'm on Instagram under the same name. I'm here on this network, the Nerd Party, doing Owlpost with Drea Kaufman as we talk about each and every chapter of the Harry Potter series. We finally made it to the Goblet of Fire, so we're so excited to be in a brand new book. You can also find me on the Trek FM network, where I'm doing The Orb with Chris Jones, talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I do our General Geek Show, where we talk about everything under the sun that we can, whether it's Marvel or DC or Star Wars or Bond. I mean, we just try to cover as much as possible, so I hope you'll check that out. And then lastly, doing a show with my friend Courtney, where we talk about films through the lens of faith, kind of dig into those morals, meanings, and messages, and that's called Cinema Stories. And you can find any of those wherever you get your podcasts. But John, I'm not the only one who has a plethora of things going on, so where can people find you?
Well, you can find my plethora at Kessel Junkie on your social network of choice. You can also find me right here on the network with Mike Schindler doing Great Shot Kid, and you can find me co-hosting Words with Nerds with my pal Craig. And yeah, that's where you can find us. And I think, Matt, there's only one thing left to say. I think it's time to close negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.